Welcome back, my fabulous sixth graders. It's good to be with you again. This will be our second webcast, and we'll be discussing Mesopotamian civilization. So, looking forward to being with you. First thing you want to know about Mesopotamia is why it was so important to be by a river. Okay, so the first civilizations arose in river valleys because good farming conditions made it easy to feed large numbers of people. So it makes sense. If you have water, then you can have crops. So it makes sense that most civilizations in the early stages of the world grew from a large body or source of water. Because with water, you can have big crops, you can have big farms, you can have lots of things. Now, the rivers also provided fish, fresh water to drink, as well as travel and trade. Trade enabled goods and ideas to come from place to place. Now, as city society became more complex, people formed governments to fix those problems. Their leaders took charge of food, supplies, and building projects. With fewer worries about meeting their basic needs, people in the river valleys had more time to think about other things. So, as people started getting better at fixing daily problems for people, then people started going off and looking into other things they could do. This started what we call division of labor. And a division of labor allows people to pursue other things that they're interested in, such as farming, pottery, fishing, clothing, which is textile, and metalworking. So, the more complex the society got, the more surplus that was revenued within that society, and also the more the efficient people got at solving problems, all made it so people could go into other fields and become better. And if there are a lot of people becoming potters, or if there are a lot of people becoming soldiers, and they like what they're doing, they're going to get really good at it, and they're going to become specialized. So, the Fertile Crescent, the earliest known civilization, arose in modern Iraq, in between the Tigris and Euphrates River. Later, the Greeks called this area Mesopotamia, which means the land between the rivers. Mesopotamia lie in the eastern part of the Fertile Crescent, a curving strip of land that extends from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. So I have a picture here. I don't know how well this picture is for you to be able to see. As you can see, this is the Tigris. On the other side is the Euphrates, and the green area represents the fertile part of the area because of the water. But I made a better one here. So here's a bigger picture of what we were looking at. So here's the Mediterranean Sea, here's the Persian Gulf. Here, if you'll follow the mouse cursor, this is the Tigris River right here. Over here, this is the mighty Euphrates. So we have two really nice big rivers, and in between those really two nice big rivers comes out what we call Sumeria, or Sumer, Sumer, as you can see here. This is the first civilization that will come out of the world, will be through Mesopotamia and what we call Sumer. So between the Euphrates and the Tigris, right here at the bottom, okay, not up here, down here at the bottom, this is where civilization's going to begin. And they're going to build cities like Babylon and Ur and Lagash and Uruk, and anyway, so Babylon came much later. So Ur, Uruk, Lagash, these are more earlier cities. And as you can see, the fertile part shows you as well where the best places to live would be, where the green area is here. So river flooding. So Mesopotamia had a hot, dry climate. In the spring, the rivers often flooded, leaving behind rich soil for farming. So it's a good thing to have flooding because rich soil it enriches the soil, and that means that if you plant, you're going to get a better yield of your crops. The problem is that you don't want to plant your crops before it floods. That's a big no-no. And Mesopotamia, especially over here what we just talked about in Sumer, flooding was very unpredictable. And that meant that people's crops could get ultimately destroyed if a flood happened. So every year farmers worried about their crops. Over time, farmers learned to get a little more, they got smarter. They started building dams and channels and canals and ditches and dikes and whatever you want to, any which way they could to stem the flood so it wouldn't destroy their crops. And when people are starting to get better at controlling the water flow, that's called irrigation. And here we are. So we have a nice little picture here. You can see how they kind of created a canal here to go around their crops to give their crops the best chance of being fed water, and they can continue to grow. So they also built walls, waterways, and ditches to bring waters to their field. This way of watering crops is called irrigation. Irrigation allowed the farmers to grow plenty of food and support a large population. By 3000 BC, many cities had formed in southern Mesopotamia in a region known as Sumer. So irrigation is going to do a lot for Sumer. One, it's going to make it much easier for farmers to be able to feed the people of the city. Instead of trying to go to the river, get large buckets of water, bring it back up to your farm and dump it on your plants so they'll grow, you dug ditches and you dug canals from the river to your farm. So now you just made it so the water just came to you instead of you having to go to the water, pick up the buckets, and then come back to your farm and dump them. So that made life a lot easier, and it gave a lot of food for the cities. So if you have a surplus, as we talked about, a surplus allows people to pursue other things. City-states. So the geography in the Sumerian cities in Sumer, it's marshy and it's not easy to travel, especially using the rivers. They weren't very good for travel. So it isolated the different cities. So the cities aren't talking a lot to each other. And to be quite frankly, they're not really friendly either. So the cities in Sumeria, they are they are going to not like each other. They're going to be in competition with each other. Okay? And as a result, Sumerian cities and land around it became separate city-states. So what's a city-state? If you can see this beautiful city here with the wall and everything and all the outskirts of it with their farms and all that, this is considered a city-state. So a city-state is a powerful city and all the land that powerful city has control of around it. So do you see all this land way out in the horizon? This city controls that. So that's the city-state. So it's a city and all the land around it that it controls. So the bigger the city-state, the more land it has, which means the more resources it has, which means ultimately the more powerful it is. And so there's going to be many city-states. So there's going to be about 5 to 6 major city-states in the land of Sumer. And they're constantly going to fight each other, trying to gain control over the other. Now, for protection, city-states surrounded itself with a wall, as you can see here. See that beautiful wall around the city? Because stone and wood were in short supply, the Sumerians used river mud as their building material. So in Sumer, it was kind of hard to come by some of the hard, like stone, rock, even wood. Um, so what they did is, but there was plenty of clay. So they would use the clay. In fact, what they would do is they'd put build blocks of clay, soft. They'd mix it up with hay and other things to give it some to let it harden a little bit, and that's how they would build their houses with clay and mixed with straw. And so if you went back into ancient Sumeria, then that's what you would see. You would see houses made of clay. Uh, it was an easy resource to get clay, so that makes a lot of sense. But it probably wasn't the most sturdy. Now we talk about Sumerian religions here. So the Sumerians believed in many gods. Each was thought to have power over a natural force or a human activity. They built a grand temple called a ziggurat, and they would build that to their chief god of the city. The word ziggurat means mountain of God or the hill of heaven. At the top was a shrine temple that only priests could enter. So if we look here, if you can see here, this is a picture of an actual ziggurat. But if we come over here, then this is a replica of what they think it looked like. So people would start walking up way up here. It's kind of crazy, I know. And really, the only thing that had any real significance where people performed rituals and stuff was in this area here called the shrine area. So this whole big building that I'm shading in, this is called the ziggurat, and then up here, this is the shrine, where or the actual temple part. Okay, so later, kings ran the government. They led armies and organized building projects. The first kings were probably war heroes. Their position became hereditary, which meant that after a king died, his son took over. And that pretty much takes it to a close for today. So today we learned about the early parts of how civilization began in the Fertile Crescent, namely Sumer, and we discussed a little bit about Sumer's geography, about city-states, a little bit about their religion and their kings. If you have any questions, go ahead and email me. I'll go ahead and also make sure you write that one-page summary and have it due at the first of the week. And I look forward to discussing all this with you. Bye bye.